everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing well wherever you are in the world. So as you may know, the fall 2025 menswear collections have just been presented to us. So I thought that in today's video we could talk about it and maybe identify some trend for fall 2025. But before we get started with this video, and if this is the first time you are watching my channel and one of my videos, welcome. My name is Nicolas. I'm a Frenchie, as you can hear by my accent, and I'm located in California, and I've created this platform to mainly talk about fashion, luxury items or bags. So if this is something you and I have in common, please do not hesitate to subscribe to this channel. That way we can become internet friends. And before we get started with this video, I just want to remind everyone that I'm not a fashion critic by any means. I'm just a guy that enjoy watching, fashion shows, and I love fashion in general. So I like to talk about it with my friends. I like to identify the trend for the season to come. So I thought I will do that with you today. So let's start by talking about color, right? Because I don't know about you, but when I watch several fashion shows for the same season, I like to see what are the colors that are being highlighted by the designer. I just want to couple that with the Pantone color of the year for 2025, which is Mocha Mousse, and it's described by Pantone as being a rich, warm brown color, and the color is described as decadent, cozy, and evocative. So brown is nothing new, for fall, winter wardrobes, but I feel like this particular shade of brown was used here and there in some of the fashion shows that we have seen. But really this particular shade of brown was not the color that was jumping at me the most when I was watching those fashion shows. I have to say that this particular shade of green, that I think is called olive green, was definitely the one that was used and abused. And this is nothing new because Bottega Veneta for the fall 2024 fashion show was definitely starting to use this particular shade of green. But I have to say that looking at the show by Comme des Garçons, Ami Paris, Officine Générale, we were definitely seeing a trend around this particular shade of olive green. Even in this Louis Vuitton show by Pharrell, you can definitely see those touch of olive green here and there, especially on those very beautiful Speedy P9. I have to say that's the most beautiful Speedy P9 I've ever seen so far, and I would be very tempted to get it. Obviously, it's too expensive. So I have to say that Bottega Veneta definitely prepared us for this particular shade of green, probably other brand as well, and we are definitely going to continue to see it in the next seasons. And with this very earthy green and this very earthy shade of brown, we can definitely feel like those designers or those brands are pushing a more like neutral vibe to us. So we are not only working with like white, black and gray here. There is some touch of color, but those colors are very, very muted. I mean, if you look at the fashion shows, there is not a lot of very vibrant color. So I feel like the neutral palette will be still very on trend for next year. Another highlight or another trend I have seen watching those fashion shows, I have to say, is a push from those designers to go back to a more formal, traditional menswear clothing. And with that, I want to mention a lot of like suit, a lot of ties. And that's not something new because we have seen that in the previous season as well. I feel like we are definitely continuing in that direction. It's almost like to confirm that, we are out of what happened 4 years ago now, or 5 years ago now. And definitely we are going in the direction of like in-person type of situation. But even if those clothing seems a bit more formal, you can definitely feel like they are a bit modernized because they feel very more comfortable. They are not tight, they are a bit more loose. They feel very soft and comfortable to wear. And we have seen this suit and tie situation within many brands in many fashion shows, but I have to say that Saint Laurent was definitely excelling in that domain. I mean, those oversized suits look very comfortable and are very, very elegant and chic. We have also seen that at Louis Vuitton, at Ami Paris, and those suits at Hermès look very, very elegant as well. And another example that shows that those designers or those fashion brands are pushing back, the more conventional and traditional vestiaire is really the use of this tartan fabric. I mean, we have seen that a lot in those different fashion shows, especially at the Zegna fashion show, but also at the Amiri one. We have also seen a lot of tartan in the Officine Générale fashion show, Comme des Garçons and Lanvin as well. Anyway, so it was present, I would say, and I think this is a way for those fashion brands and those designers, once again, to show us us that, this is okay to reuse what we already have. What we have, used by the past is still working today. So there might be a bit of a sustainable, mentality here. And we can also see that this big haut à courroie from the Hermès fashion show. We're going to talk about bag in a minute, but I just want to highlight that here. It really seems like they have used an old, HAC from the 90s or the 80s and put it on this runway just to tell us like this is okay to use what has already been used. And maybe it's a way also to share with us that we are a bit over this overconsumption and all of those trends, and we are not about trend after trend. We are really about, quality pieces that are lasting lifelong. So I found that very interesting because I have to say that personally, I'm so over like seeing one trend after the next. I'm really trying to build a wardrobe that is going to last me as long as possible. I want to have quality pieces that I'm going to use and abuse. I want to be able to use them all of my life, basically. And I feel like this is what those fashion shows and those designers are showing us. All of the code that we have been, shown by the past are still working today, and that's okay to reuse what we already have. That's okay to use our own clothes. That's okay to use the clothes from our parents or our grandparents. That's really resonated with me because that's how I intend to use my own wardrobe and my own clothes. Also maybe a way for those brands to capitalize in all of the vintage trend and the second-hand clothes trend. I mean, we all know that the second-hand market and the vintage market is really, really growing, and people are more and more willing to use already used clothes and vintage clothing, vintage accessories, vintage bags. I'm definitely one of them. I have no problem to buy vintage bag or like already used bag or already used jacket, for example. This is maybe a way for those brands to have a piece of the cake. Really seen a lot of vintage vibe during those fashion show. We could have seen that also at Oralie with those vintage looking perfecto. Again, the old HAC from Hermès. There is also maybe a nostalgia from the 90s or from past in general. I really feel like those brands really want to capitalize in that. Also watch a lot of video mentioning like, luxury is dead. Those brands are not doing well, which is true. Some of those brands are actually struggling. The consumer are definitely changing as well. How is eBay doing? How all of those second-hand shops, second-hand brands, the Vestiaire Collective, I feel like a lot of consumers are now willing to buy second-hand or to buy vintage. Obviously, pricing is a major factor in the consumer decision. Buying second-hand or buying already used or buying vintage is probably less expensive than buying new, especially with the price of those brands today. But also, I feel like there is a general consciousness that it's okay to buy what's already been used. There is so much stock out there, so much things that are going to be trendy or are trendy again out there for a better price. That why not buying, the already used one compared to the new one. And added to that, I feel like we are really in a time where clothes are pretty, simple. White luxury is still there. The neutral is still king. How do you add your personality to it? By maybe buying something vintage that have been already used, by adding some accessories here and there. So show your personality a bit more if you are maybe buying something that has already been used, that have an history. I mean, I would love, for example, to own some vintage Gucci or vintage YSL from this designer era or this designer era, and I feel like this is where you can show your personality as well, rather than buy the latest from Prada or the latest from YSL. That's very interesting to highlight that, at least to me, despite the fact that we have seen a lot of push for the traditional and conventional clothes for men, we have also seen a lot of like extravagant pieces. For example, I have to say that we have seen a lot of like fur and faux fur and shearling, so those are more like out there pieces, I would say, that you don't see a lot on men. Obviously, fur and faux fur and shearling are nothing new, but I feel like it's a more like a statement piece than your regular, suit or your regular jeans or bomber jacket. So definitely there were like a lot of highlight on those more like out there pieces during those fashion shows. I love those like faux fur and shearling pieces. Can see myself wearing that. And so we have definitely seen that in the Sakai fashion show, where the model looked very wild, with this fur or faux fur, I'm not actually sure. In the Comme des Garçons fashion show as well, I'm not seeing a lot of fur or faux fur here, but the wildness of the models in the runway were were definitely very present. Oh, and talking about fur or faux fur and statement pieces, I mean, the Dolce & Gabbana show was definitely very representative about that. I mean, all of those statement pieces, those large faux fur coats were definitely out there. Okay, let's talk about a topic we all like around here, bags. And I have to say that I was kind of surprised to see that during those fashion shows, not a lot of bags were presented to us, not a lot of brands were focusing on bags. And I think it's fair to say that the bags that were presented to us were in two categories. The first one, which was a smaller one, I think, where, smaller bag, more to use for like specific event or to go to the office. For example, the one at the Dior fashion show, which were those mini saddle that you can use as clutch, or the one at the Hermès fashion show that are more like a Kelly Dépêche, a mini Kelly Dépêche, also used for the office. I think they were paired with some suit, but the most prevalent category of bag we have seen during these fashion shows were all around, I think, travel. So we could have seen that with East-West new bags from Prada. We have also seen that obviously with Hermès, with the Oa Courroie, including the new design that they have launched for this season. All of the Speedy by Louis Vuitton, which are also very reminiscent of travel. So the vibe was, if you carry a bag, it better have a purpose. So it's only when you're going to travel and carry stuff in it. Because of that, the bags that were presented to us were largely big. Alors, there were different styles there, more traditional shape, again, like the HAC by Hermès, but also a lot of like slouchy bag, like the one we have seen at Dior. Where else we have seen those type of bags? Le Mer as well. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've seen one crossbody bag during those fashion shows. I have not watched everything, so please let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. I think you know what I mean compared to previous season. It was definitely more minimal in that aspect to me, and really more about the utility of an accessory rather than the fashion and the accessory. And lastly, something I wanted to mention here, and I'm not sure if this is really something we can tell about those fashion shows, but that's something I have noticed. Above, the travel obsession, you can definitely feel like those men or those people are going somewhere as a group. There were definitely something about Japan. I think it's a category of maybe the travel, the movement category of those fashion shows. I feel like Japan was really highlighting during those fashion shows. The first example I have with that is definitely the Louis Vuitton fashion show. Pharrell was collaborating with his friend Nigo, and they were using a lot of silk, which is obviously widely used in the traditional Japanese garment. So here we are. This is another, I think, example of traditional garment, traditional fabric. We have also seen that at the Orally fashion show with this silk anorak. Obviously, the Dior men fashion show, a lot of silhouettes to me were referring to, a Japanese samurai. So again, here, a Japanese inspiration. And if we go back a bit to color, despite the fact that those fashion shows were really, safe in terms of color and very earthy and very neutral. One of the shade of color, or one of the color we have seen also here and there was a shade of pink, a very pale pastel pink. We have obviously seen that at Louis Vuitton. We have seen that also at the Dior Men fashion show, obviously, also at the Ami Paris. And maybe it's too much of a bridge here, but I feel like this particular muted and pale and pastel shade of pink is really reminiscent of the cherry blossom of Japan. So yes, as a conclusion, I will say that there was a particular menswear collection that has been presented to us. I want to say that I was not as rich, not as diverse as the previous menswear collection we have been seeing, especially for a fall-winter menswear collection. I feel like it used to be a bit more diverse, a bit more rich, a bit more exciting. I feel like this one was very, I want to say safe, a bit more safe, a bit more muted, a bit back to what was working, what was, there already. There was definitely for me a big highlight on vintage, a big highlight on tradition, a big highlight on, neutral, on what is versatile. It was all about, I think, not being trendy and really more about being functional, versatile, and I would say conscious. So that's the end of this video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching it. I realized it was not very well constructed, but I really wanted to have an open conversation about those fashion shows and, this collection in general with you. Let me know what you have thought about it. I'm very curious if you have watched some of the fashion show, first of all, but also what you are thinking of it. What's your mood really with fashion right now and with those luxury brands? I'm very curious to have this conversation with you in the comment section below. And other than that, again, I hope you are doing well, being safe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.